Tuned into News and Views, and it's time for our Community Desk feature. This is a part of the show where we highlight some of the biggest community stories that are affecting people out there, South Africa, different provinces, small towns, cities, municipalities, wherever you are in and around the country. We want to hear from you. We want to hear what are some of the challenges that you're facing in your town, in your community. It might not even be challenges, it might be wins, it might be events that you want to highlight. This is a part of the show that is specifically dedicated to communities, local communities. And this time around, we'll be heading over to Benoni, where we'll be looking at a growing crisis. Hundreds of residents have been left without electricity for more than 10 days. And this is disrupting homes, it's disrupting businesses, and even life support equipment for vulnerable community members. Residents from areas including Rainfeld, Mackenzie Park, Northmead, New Murder, and the Central Business District say they're angry and exhausted. They're blaming poor communication and repeated outages that returned almost as soon as power was restored. City officials have pointed to cable theft and illegal mining damage as part of the problem, but people on the ground feel left in the dark, literally and figuratively. And to help us unpack and get a bit more insight on what's really going on out in the east and what needs to be happening next, we're joined by Councillor Mary Goby. She's a ward councillor of Ward 73 for Benoni. Councillor Goby, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you giving us your time.
Good morning. Thank you very much for inviting me on your show. I'm not the ward councillor of Ward 73, but I'm a resident in Ward 73. Okay. So I'm Ward 28 councillor, but as a resident of Ward 73, I can explain to you. Like you say, the vulnerable. And when I say the vulnerable, Western Extension is an area where we have 90% of the residents are pensioners. It's an old area. People don't want to move. We've got old age homes, and they're the ones that are suffering the most. And then we've got the ones that are supporting on life support, and they have to have oxygen, and they don't have. Today is day 11, and some of these residents still do not have power because another cable has been now stolen in Western Extension. So the MMC promised us yesterday that everybody would have electricity yesterday. Now we get told, oh no, we'll have feedback again at 10 today. But the feedback's not coming in fast enough, and there's no accountability. There's no, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. It's actually the councillors and residents that are rallying around to feed people. Because if you cannot get a warm meal, how are you supposed to survive? And that's our biggest concern, is that we are literally in the dark. We're not getting feedback timelessly. And, for the first 7 days, it was a nightmare. But now we're still sitting with at least 500 people without electricity. And if you think the one place is the SAPS's own flats, how are those SAPS members supposed to get up and go and do their duties if they can't even have a hot bath, clean clothes? It's like not fair on them to go and perform their duties under strenuous conditions for 12 hours a day if you don't get what you need. But honestly and truly, it's the pensioners, the vulnerable, the people that are surviving on life support to keep them going. When your oxygen levels are supposed to be 90% and you're sitting at 70%, how do you feel? How do you actually get around and just sit and try and get some oxygen into your lungs? And you need that to survive. So that's our biggest thing. We need proper feedback and we need help. These residents cannot carry on like this.
Most definitely. And you spoke about some of the most vulnerable residents in the area, focusing on medical equipment and how that has been a struggle. There's also talks about residents using thousands and thousands of rand in spoiled food, and also businesses that have been affected by this. Can you give us a bit more insight on that? What stories are you hearing directly from those that are on the ground?
Yeah, so a lot of residents actually get paid around about the 20th, depending on which pension policy you're on and how you survive, but also up until the 21st. So you can buy your meat for the month. I've heard residents have gone and spoiled 3,000 rands worth of meat, which is nothing when you think about it. But for a pensioner and an older person, that's a lot of money. Then you've got the businesses. The one business has already confirmed by Thursday last week, they spent 80,000 rand on diesel. 80,000 rand. Who's going to pay that back? No one. Then we've got the small businesses. And when I'm saying small businesses, they're homeowners and everything else. They are really struggling to survive the day today runnings of their business just to bring that little bit of money in, because that is their bread and butter. And it's, if you look at Western Extension, a lot of the small businesses there are home businesses. Then you go into the CBD, where people are trying to put new tires on cars. You can't put new tires on cars. Cell phone shops can't work. Everybody, and if you go look around, we've got generators at nearly every cell phone tower in the area to try and keep the people up to date. But how do you charge your batteries, and how do you charge your lights if you can't have electricity to charge it all? So there's millions of rands have been lost in the last week with this power outage. Millions.
I want to come back to your engagements with the city of Ekurhuleni. They've cited, as you mentioned, cable theft and infrastructure damage as contributors to these outages. Do you see that as the core issue, or are there deeper systemic infrastructure problems that are at play?
Okay, so the first section was cable theft, attempted cable theft. They didn't manage to get the cable because it is aluminium, so they didn't. When they eventually got the power up and running on Tuesday afternoon, it landed up a few hours later. The Zambazamas, with their undermine blasting, actually caused damage to those joints again. So that started the next thing. But in between all this, cables are being stolen. So we've got one, I think it's about 10, 15 meters of cable stolen from one section. Then we've got individual cables going to little businesses and homes that have also been stolen in between this. And this is where the municipality are saying, oh, you've got to go and do an affidavit, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, and you've got to prove you don't own the municipality account. But when this big cable of nearly 15 meters is on a provincial ground, who's the one that's going to go to the police station and do an affidavit? Because I won't. I don't own that cable. I don't own that land. The province and Ekurhuleni need to do it, and they have to stop this, making people go to do affidavits. But you go to do an affidavit like yesterday to Benoni police station, and they ended up said, oh no, we can't print any affidavit, but you need to go now off to Actonville police station. You get to Actonville police station, sorry, you fall under Benoni, you must go back to Benoni. So these poor residents have been sent from pillar to post, and then get to the municipality, and they've got to climb 7 floors to get to the, 7 flights of stairs to get to the office to hand in the paperwork. No, it doesn't work that way. It's not their fault the stuff is being stolen. It's not their fault that they don't have power.
And lastly, before I let you go, your engagements with the municipality, you mentioned that yesterday you were promised that today everyone will be having electricity, but that doesn't seem to be going to be happening. What's the latest? Have they come back to you guys and told you why that promise has not been fulfilled?
No, they are blaming the one cable theft, and they are busy on it, and they are waiting for equipment to arrive. But then the thing is, don't make a promise and then change your promise a few hours later. Come up with an idea.
Most definitely. And I'm sure there's a lot of pressure from you and other ward councillors. How have you been handling that? The frustration from the residents, members of the community that feel like you should be the ones that are fixing this problem because you are elected ward councillors?
I understand, but the residents, some have been very polite and helpful, but we have some residents that have been utterly and truly, I cannot explain, they've been horrible. And the words they've used against councillors, and, you've got to understand, we're also human. We don't need to be treated in such a way that you're threatening our lives, threatening our families, and saying, oh, you've got power, and we can do this, and you can do that. I, for instance, don't have solar. And I survived, I made a plan to survive the 7 days because I know the frustrations of everybody else. But don't take your frustrations out on the councillors. It's not our fault. We just work for Ekurhuleni. We don't have the power to switch an on and off power or the water. So the messages, if I can show you, I will send you some of the messages. You will be really and truly shocked at the wording that has gone out to some of our councillors. And, at the end of the day, people say, oh, yes, you've got to be up and about all the time and you signed for the job. Yes, we signed for the job, but we did not sign to be abused.
No, most definitely, Mary Goby, residents of Ward 72 and also a ward councillor out in Benoni. Thank you so much. We'll continue to follow the story. We'll try and reach out to the relevant authorities to see how we can assist you. But we're going to leave it there for now. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for inviting me on. Have a great day.
There you go. This has been our hashtag community desk feature. And I think, yeah, very, very concerning what's happening out in Ekurhuleni. I'm sure they're frustrated, man. And the frustration now is being spilled over to the ward councillors because, well, they are the only point of reference at this point. They're the closest to the municipality that you can get, and it's understandable, although not condoned, that people are angry, they're lashing out, they're looking for an outlet, and unfortunately councillors are bearing the brunt of that. We'll continue to follow this quite closely. If you're also want to highlight a concern out in your community, you can reach out to us. Our studio line is 01168000355. On WhatsApp is 0617660355, and you can also feature on our community desk feature. Otherwise, quick break. News and views continues after this.